Call to order the regular council meeting of the corporation of the township of Green Mountain, Falcon Rising. This first day of October 2025 at 7:01 p.m. As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. I would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. We are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Roll call, Councillor Banks.
Yes.
Councillor Colville. Here. Councillor Keller.
Here.
Councillor Hall. We have a resolution to adopt the agenda. That we, the council for the corporation of the township of Blue Mountain, Falcon Island, adopt the agenda as amended to include one item in closed session under subsection C, acquisition or disposition of land. Could I get mover for that, please? Moved by Councilor Keller, second by Blood. Any comments, questions? Call for the vote, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, none, the motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest for anybody with?
No.
Okay, mayor's address, it was a very, very quiet month, I attended 2 county council meetings. Not a whole lot going on, pretty quiet. And I don't know, did you send that resolution for the lawyers meeting?
It wasn't a resolution, it was just.
Letter, sorry.
Letter, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
I don't know, you would have got a letter from Canton for about a meeting with Cunningham Swan on October 28th, that the, even though I've registered to go to that. What's your point, anything?
Well, you said September was quiet.
It was really quiet.
Tam and I will be joining you at,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's always good to go and listen and see what they have to say. So. Delegations and our presentation, we have. Jane. Wow, I don't know how to say that name. Yeah, and our chief operations forester. To do a presentation, I believe he's with us on Zoom.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi. Freeman Schneider.
Greenwich-shire. Yeah, okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. It's saying I'm blocked for sharing my screen here.
Is it okay now?
Okay, there we go. Is that working? Okay, you can see that?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm Dane Riemenschneider, as we said. I'm the operations forester with Ottawa Valley Forest. I just wanted to come in here and give some information and some context around the spray program for Crown Land. There's been quite a bit of talk around it recently and misinformation going around and protests, and we've been getting quite a few emails and phone calls around it. So I thought we'd come and try to clear some things up. So just to start, Ottawa Valley Forest has held the Sustainable Forest License, or the SFL, since 1998. So there's 308,000 of that is SFL managed, of which 234,000 is managed forest land. As an SFL, we don't do any work on private land. We strictly just work on Crown land, which we've been getting a lot of questions around that. And one of the biggest complaints recently has just been people thinking that we're going to spray on private land. So we just make sure that everybody understands that we don't work on private land. We're strictly on Crown land. So as a forester, my primary role is walking blocks and then writing a prescription depending on the forest type. So whether it's maple, oak, or pine, or things like that. So depending on the forest type and the conditions, I'll make a decision on how we're going to harvest that bog. So forest management in Ontario is kind of designed around emulating natural disturbances. So of what would be typical for that forest type. So whether it's windstorms or pest outbreaks or fire and those types of things. So without going into too much detail about it, things like a tolerant hardwood or sugar maple stands, we do what's called a select cut, where we'd come through and do like a partial removal of about 30%. Other species are more adapted to more sunlight. So intolerant hardwoods, poplar and white birch are those. So it's more of a clear cut system. Same spruce. Then there's some more mid tolerance, which we do what was called a shelterwood system, where we'd come through in stages and remove some of the overstory. So this graph here on the side shows what our breakdown of forest type is for the Ottawa Valley Forest. So the PWS one, that's the that would be white pine. So that's the biggest forest type for our forest here. And it's also one of the biggest objectives in our forest management plan, is to make sure that we maintain the amount of pine on the landscape to historical levels, which is challenging to do and it's expensive to do. So it would be easy for us to go in and harvest pine and then let it naturally regenerate back to poplar or other mixed woods, but we don't want to do that. We put a lot of effort into making sure that we regrow pine where we're cutting pine. And it's an important species. They're white pine forests, as we all know, are iconic in this part of the world. So we want to do what we can to maintain that. So white pine forest in this part of the world would be fire origin forests. They historically would have low intensity forest fires that would periodically burn and creating conditions to favor pine, and while not harming the bigger trees that are more resistant to it. So they burn off the competing vegetation, allowing the pine seedlings to grow. But obviously we don't try not to let fires run wild here anymore. So now we kind of do that whole system artificially. So we'd come in and we'd harvest the trees, targeting the poor quality ones and the poorly spaced ones. And then we do like site preparation, where we mix up some of the debris and move some of the slash around and create plantable spots. We use skidders for that. And then we're preparing the topsoil, then we'd come plant trees. So this is what that would look like. So this is a shelterwood harvest here. This is coming right after what we call a seed cut. So this was after mechanically site prep, but before the planting. So we'd space out all the trees, leaving some shade, leaving some nice big trees to drop some additional seed on top. And then after a few years, that would bring us to the tending stage after it's planted. You could think of that as you would in your garden. So after the harvest and all of that open soil creates all kinds of new opportunity for new growth. And with the slower growing species like pine, slower than the other ones anyways, which are more like the full sunlight ones, which aren't necessarily weeds, but in this context, we'd consider them weeds because we're trying to grow the pine that we just planted. So then, so this picture here would be about 5 to 7 years after planting. So then this has been tended to. So this one would have been sprayed and brush sod actually, and it still has this quite a bit of competition, but the pine are kind of equally with them and growing alongside with them rather than being totally overtopped. So there's a few different tending methods or weed control methods, we'd say. So mechanical site prep that I talked about. So we do that on most of our planting blocks. There's also brush saws, which we do typically around 400 hectares a year of that. It's a very difficult job, dangerous job, and comes with its own risks and has issues around resprouting. So this picture was a block. It's kind of hard to see from this picture, but this was just thinned last year. So this red maple would have been just cut down last year and it's already resprouted to that. So it's a temporarily gives you some extra light, but it doesn't last all that long. There's prescribed fire, which has risk of escaping, damage to property. And here we have quite a few people around. So it's really not a practical thing for around here, although sometimes it'd be a nice option. Sheep has been coming up lately. People have tried sheep through the years in the past. It's really not practical at this scale. It requires large numbers of sheep. They're kind of not very specific on what they'll eat, sometimes including the crop trees. There's risk around bringing domestic animals around wild animals and spreading disease and that sort of things. And it's having the personnel to do that would be a challenge. So brush mats or another have been trialed in the past too, and they were just expensive, cumbersome, and overall not very effective, which would bring us to herbicides. They have a lot of negative perception by the public, but they work. There is some species that are more resistant than others, but in the right context, they are very effective. So those are our realistic options here. So the most common one is glyphosate. So that's the one we use here. It's primarily used for agriculture. That's about 80% of its use. It's been used in agriculture since 1971, used in forestry for weed control since about 76. It's one of the most studied, or if not the most studied herbicide on the market. So a lot of people have looked at it very extensively, and it's gone through very tough scrutiny. It comes different product names. Roundup would be the one most people are familiar with, but there's also Vision, Timberline, and Canada. Pesticides are regulated by Pest Management Regulatory Agency, the PMRA. So in 2017, a big comprehensive review of all glyphosate studies was done in Canada, and Health Canada's found that proposed findings were that when used according to the label instructions, products containing glyphosate are not expected to pose risks of concern to human health or the environment. And there's just a link to where that was. So here's a picture of what it looks like. So this was a block. This was just taken. We just took this picture last week. This is a block that we sprayed last year. This is the result, kind of typical result. So you can see some dead sticks around. Some species are more resilient than others. So the red maple gets knocked back a bit, but it rarely gets fully killed. The poplar and pin cherry get knocked back, but it really just opens up some sunlight to the planted species here. So we planted the red pine. So this is, I don't think it's what people envision in their mind. So it's by no means a monoculture. We leave all these big residual white pine standing for seeds and diversity. And there's also some dead snags and wildlife trees around. So it's, so you can see what it is we're talking about. So all that being said, this is still a toxic chemical. So I do acknowledge that, and it has to be used properly. So the same goes for many other products in our everyday lives. It could be dangerous if not used according to the directions. So such as laundry detergent, paint, prescription drugs, gasoline. So just like a prescription drug might say twice a day, or take it twice a day for 3 weeks with food, this label would say, follow the proper rates per hectare, buffer zones, wind speeds, and humidity so that it works effectively and doesn't stray away from the targeted area. For a typical block in forestry, it might be sprayed 1 or 2 times over a 100-year rotation at a rate of 3 liters per hectare, which is a very low dose and low exposure rate. So the International Agency of Research on Cancer, the IARC, they did come out with, in 2015, they called it a group 2A, which is a probable carcinogenic to humans. So that term is definitely alarming to a lot of people when they see that. But when there is a lot of other things on that list, such as red meat, shift work, and even hot beverages. So there are some things that are classified that, but you got to take it in context with it. So gasoline would be a group 1 chemical, which is the highest risk group. I also see some concerns circulating around the gut biome. So there is some studies that can show an imbalance in healthy versus unhealthy gut bacteria, but those studies were really around high exposure scenarios that just aren't realistic to what anybody or wildlife would be exposed to. On the same note, the chemical doesn't bioaccumulate, so it doesn't build up in fatty tissue. So if a moose eats a leaf with glyphosate on it, and then you come and eat that moose, it's not going to transfer up the line like it does with something like mercury. So a lot of it comes down to risk versus hazard. So IARC uses a hazard assessment, just simply can this chemical cause cancer, whereas Health Canada uses a risk assessment. So given the scenario, how likely is it that the chemical will be harmful under circumstances that may be reasonably expected to occur? So this quote is from Dr. Vicky Tatum from the NCASI, which is, residues of this herbicide in corn might cause cancer, but only if an individual consumed 242 pounds of it every day for more than 50 years. So its use on corn poses little to no risk to consumers. So that sums up quite a bit of what we're talking about. So that's for humans, but what about the risk to the environment? So glyphosate binds to soil, meaning that it attached to the soil, typically doesn't move. where it is degraded by soil microbes. There's quite a range on the half-life for it, depending on climate, soil temperature, and some other various environmental conditions. In water, it acts the same, so it'll bind onto sediment and then begin to degrade. In plants, it's been shown to persist into the next growing season, but concentrations are very low. And it's taken in through the foliage. So any plants that grow on that site after the fact aren't going to take it up through the roots. So it won't be found in any new growth on a site that has been treated. So I've included just a timeline of some of the major events, so I won't go to it in detail. I've included it in the package I provided as well. So some of the big ones are that 2015 IARCA declaration of the probable carcinogen. And then most recently here, just this year, there was PRMRA was forced to consider 61 new studies as a result of a federal lawsuit. So they did that, and they completed their study in August and found that their risk assessment is still valid, so no change. So again, it was when used according to the label instructions is the important part, that products containing glyphosate are not expected to pose risks to human health or the environment. So I've said the label instructions a few times. So that's next one here. So that was this is more the details on that. So our areas are typically away from people in general. They're more in the remote areas up in the northern part of our forests. Buffers are applied to all water bodies. So there's minimum 60 meters on water, and then significant values get 120 meters. So that would be anything like a species at risk or trap cabins. And there's a very long list of different kind of buffers that we provide for all sorts of things. But our rates are 3 to 5 liters of product per hectare, and then that gets mixed with water. So it's diluted and sprayed via helicopter. Wind is one of the biggest ones. So to avoid drift, they have to fly at a certain height and can't spray once the wind gets over 10 kilometers an hour. So it falls straight down. Temperature has to fall within 24 degrees Celsius, and the humidity has to be in the right range so it doesn't evaporate or anything like that. And we also block the road so nobody can accidentally get in or get sprayed or anything like that. And we post signs too, so people are aware of where on the forest has been sprayed. So to wrap it all up, so we manage forests depending on their forest type, not large scale converting hardwoods to softwood lumber, which a lot of people think that we're doing. In some of the stands, we do use herbicides as a tool to help get the desired outcome, but all our plans are public, and we post our AWS every year, so it's all available online, so people can go see for themselves. And that's one of my biggest points, is just to encourage people to go out and see it for themselves. You can, it's all public on where we sprayed and where we've done everything. You can drive around the Ottawa Valley Forest, which has been actively managed for a very long time, including glyphosate, and it's still a very healthy, diverse forest. Here's just a few of our numbers for people if they're curious about how much we are doing. So our average year, I mean, it varies, but it's average 1,500 hectares a year that we harvest. So 0.6% of our land base. We plant about 400,000 trees every year. We do roughly 400 hectares of brush saw work, so manual tending. And the spray is anywhere from 0 to 500. Some years we don't do any spray at all, just if we don't need any. Some years are bigger, so we might group up until we have a decent package. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Does council have any questions?
I don't have no questions, but I'd just like to say thanks. There's a lot of interesting facts there, I think, for everybody to take into consideration. So thanks again.
You're welcome.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to. Yeah, now do the minutes. We have a resolution that we, the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel, Lindau, and Raglan, hereby adopt the minutes of the public council meeting and regular council meeting on September 3rd, 2025, as presented. Can we get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Banks, seconded by Councillor Coyle. Any comments, questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote, all those in favor?
Yep.
Opposed, none, the motion is carried. Regular meeting minutes. No, regular meeting minutes.
That's just the meetings, right?
Yeah, but that was first the public and then, well, it's one resolution. Okay. Anyway. We have a resolution concerning the recycling program. The council for the corporation of the township of Brunel and Aldergrove and direct the operations manager to accept the sale proposal in the amount of $500. A bin for 37 bins from Miller Waste. Can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Keller, seconded by Councillor Claude. I need to leave, we have a staff report from, our operations manager.
Yes, thank you. So a few weeks back, I met with Lunar Waste, as we're getting close to the onboarding of the new recycling program. We just wanted to go around, get a feel for our sites, get a layout, see how things are gonna work, and go from there. During our visits, they offered to purchase the front load bins that we currently use. Seeing how the program, municipality is not going to be responsible for any operations with recycling anymore. The bins are basically going to be useless to us, so if we don't accept their proposal, our bids basically get set aside and we can do what we want with them. Or we have the opportunity to offload them now, and I think it's a good idea that we do that. We did do some number crunching here and, with depreciation on the bins that we purchased in 2018. We're looking at 507 bid anyway, so 500 is pretty reasonable. It is standard in what they're offering all the other municipalities as well, so. So that's where we're at. So we got 37 to go and 39 altogether. We need to keep at least 2 for our non-eligible materials. But everything else can go.
Is 2 enough?
I think it will be based on what volume we're going to receive.
Would you not need one at each site?
So the way we have it proposed now, we are only going to accept non-eligible items at one of our sites.
And that coincides with the resolution council passed when establishing the meeting.
So that's all the commercial and industrial. So who pays for those ones going?
So that would be our responsibility. And we estimated might only need to be emptied once a year, if that.
Okay.
3% of our recycling is for non-eligible.
Very, very small one.
Yeah, well, for,
So basically, they'll be using those bins at our site, we're just purchasing them, it's like.
They are going to use some of them are going to leave. So what they are going to do is. All the fiber material is going to be placed in front load bins. All the plastics, glass, etc. are going to go into a roll-off bin, which they're going to provide.
Yeah.
okay,
So the bins may or may not all stay,
They need.
but they're going to move stuff around where they need them in other locations.
Lots of use for them.
Yeah,
It doesn't pay us now.
No.
Yes, from.
well, not that amount of them, I think we may as well get rid of them and get something for them.
Now all that money be going into the waste reserves.
We won't probably see that until the new year, but we just want to tell them all
Yeah.
now, we can know the
Yeah, then,
accept, so it could be bids in the meantime, we do have a number of them that are not being used right now.
Yes.
They can come, take one for a look.
So which site is the commercial and industrial waste located?
We have the right instant. Most of the, for instance, the industrials in this areas.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so good with that, any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote, all those in favor? Opposed, none, that motion is carried. Correspondence with the resolution of the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel, Lindop and Raglan hereby accept the correspondence as circulated. Can I get a mover for that, please? Second move. Moved by Councilor Capell, seconded by Councilor Vance. Is there anything in there that council would like to pull? It's nice to get a report on the construction update at the hospital. Things are moving along very well then.
Mhm.
They do like the mandatory service provider.
Yes, that was the one I looked at.
10-6.
Is there anyone else? Yeah,
The closure from before and after school programs. What's that, what's happening with that? Like, is that everywhere or just the?
I don't know.
Just that county, I think. Oh, yeah. I don't live around county, or live in one, either, it's in the CRC.
I don't think there's a lot of them from years ago, there's anymore.
Thank you.
Okay, so a friendly amendment to the motion to pull the Smith
Service provider.
to survive.
It was 10-6, right?
Yeah, 10-6.
Is that okay with the mover and the seconder? Okay, I'll call for the vote, all those in favor? Opposed, none, the motion is carried. Okay, we have a letter of support, a resolution from the aerial spraying at the Golf site. And it's being brought back if council has changed their mind since the presentation. I mean, that will show up in the vote, but because we referred from our last meeting, we have to, it's on the table. Be it resolved that the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel and Dr. Raglan support the municipality of West Nipissing's resolution requesting a moratorium on aerial spraying of glyphosate in the Nipissing forest, and further that this resolution be forwarded to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, Ministry of Health, MPP and MP for Renfrew, Nipissing member, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, and all municipalities including northeastern Ontario. Did I get a mover for that, please? Second, moved by Councillor Capell, seconded by Councillor Watt. Any comments or questions? I'll call for the vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? I think with the explanation we received, and I don't know if anyone, watched Hillary and Hagerty Townships last meeting. Jeff Muzzy was there. It's very little land this spring, and it's not near any homes or anything, so the motion is defeated.
Then it is part of the forest management.
It's, yeah,
It's not surprising, I mean, the facts that he gave in his presentation in regards to how long it's been used. And the conditions around it, and all that's required, and the. There's a few facts even there that I wasn't realized, so,
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
The only thing that they can't control is when it goes from the spray.
Well, that's why they use the wind.
No, but I mean, it's still, it's.
Oh, yeah, I mean, even if there's no right way, yeah.
Talk to a farmer who sprays fields and they're only a few feet off the ground.
yeah,
Talk to them about how it spreads around. But I mean, you can't really control where it goes. You know, they try their best for sure. How it impacts lakes and things. I'm not a biologist, so I don't know. I've seen things kind of happen oddly around a lake after it's been sprayed the year after. So I'm pretty sure the lake got sprayed, but like I said, I'm not a biologist, I think. It's just something happened to the lake, I don't know why, other than it was, the bush all around was sprayed the year before.
okay, we have a letter of support, family health teams in Ontario. Be it resolved that the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel and Raglan support the township of Arms resolution requesting for a standard and mandatory governance model for the boards of family health teams in Ontario. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, Deputy Premier and Minister of Health, Chair of the Primary Care Action Team, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Association of Family Health Teams of Ontario, and all municipalities in Ontario. Could I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Banks, seconded by Councillor Keller. Any comments, questions? I call for the vote then. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, none, the motion is carried. Letter of support for waste management. Be it resolved that the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel and Alvin Island support the municipality of Tweed's resolution requesting collaborative action on sustainable waste management in Ontario. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario and the opposition parties, other relevant stakeholders and all municipalities in Ontario. Can I get a motion for the, or mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Paul. Any comments or questions? Call for the vote, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed, none, the motion is carried. Financial reports, we have a resolution of the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel and Raglan, except the year-to-date budget variance and the monthly expenses summary is presented. Can you get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Keller, seconded by Councillor Boyd. Everybody has reviewed these. Any comments, questions? Have we gotten control?
Not yet, yeah.
Supposed to be here last week. No, I'm supposed to be here Monday.
Oh, that's good.
I'm supposed to be here today,
Oh,
but today is coming down and I can't see it in company right here. Hopefully before the end. Yeah.
okay. Any comments, questions from council? Looks very good.
Yeah.
Because we're in October.
It's sneak around, it's looking pretty good.
That budget looks good. No alarms. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, none, the motion is carried. We had a resolution for the zoning bylaw. That we, the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel, Lindau, and Raglan, hereby adopts bylaw number 2025-42. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 8708 of the former township of Brunel and Lindau. As amended, having been read the first, second, and third time, and finally passed, and did a little bit of that, please. Moved by Councilor Heller, seconded by Councilor Watt. Any concerns? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. The motion is carried. And there is resolution that we, the council for the corporation of the township of Brunel, Lindau, and Raglan, going to closed session pursuant to the municipal act 2001, section 239(2) for the purpose of two items under section D, labor relations or employee negotiations, and one item under subsection C, acquisition or disposal of land. Could I get a little of that, please? Moved by Councilor Banks, seconded by Councilor Quad. All those in favor? Opposed? None. The motion is carried. See you.